Whoa! All right, you guys are in for a treat. I get to introduce my favorite pinball artist. I'm Zach from Straight Down the Middle of Pinball Show, and this newcomer is...
I'm Jack Danger from Deathlit. What's going on?
All right, guys, we have the pleasure of presenting our friend, an awesome pinball artist with so much to come. This, everybody, put your hands together for Christopher Franchi.
Zach, you didn't do the thing.
Oh, I didn't do my thing. Okay. Chris, you ready?
Yeah.
Let's kick this shit.
In honor of Greg, who can't be here today. Thanks, guys. How are you guys doing? Let me be one of those really bad local bands. I said, how are you guys doing? Right on. I actually do have to be right up on this thing. That's what she said. I'm gonna hunch down here. I'll just hold it.
Why don't you just...
Yeah.
It's not that
That's a good
difficult.
idea. All right, can you hear me all right? Yeah. All right, cool. Well, welcome to the making of the Guardians pinball machine, as you can see up there. I have compiled some interesting things to show you guys and offer you some insight on what it was like to create this thing. I will tell you this, it was much better to have 9 months than 3 weeks. Batman was not fun. I still have nightmares about that point in my life. But I did have about 9 months to do this one, on and off. Obviously, it didn't take 9 months, but... and then after we go through this, I'll show you some rare art that we didn't use. I'll show you some art that I really wanted to use that they wouldn't let me use. Some other little Easter eggs things, and then we can do a little Q&A at the end. And I'll tell you this right now, I have a very cool Guardians of the Galaxy art print that I'm going to personalize to whoever has the best question at the end of the seminar. So start thinking right now. Anyway, all right, let's get this thing started. There's the 3 basic models. As you will see them on the showroom, that's what we ended up with. So in case you're not familiar with this game, there you go. This is what I call my Marvel tryout. Marvel would not just let Stern have anybody, do the artwork on the machine. They wanted to see something that was related to the machine. So, whoa, things going crazy on me. There we go. So I drew Groot and Rocket, and Marvel approved me. Yay! And you actually see this artwork on the machine because I wasn't going to waste it because I spent a lot of time drawing a whole lot of damn wood.
Giggity.
Giggity. I don't often draw wood, but when I do, it's Groot. So that was my tryout. I keep hitting the wrong buttons here. And this was as well. They wanted to see some sort of pencil sketch rough of the side cabinet, and I just kind of threw this together very quick. And we didn't end up doing anything like this, though I kind of wanted to. But so there's a rarity for you, a layout we didn't use. This was the first cabinet that I designed. Now, up in the upper right corner there, you'll see that's actually the radio from the DVD menu of the movie. What the movie studio did was they took, he had like Garbage Pail Kid trading cards and things like that tucked in around the edge, and they just made cards of the characters, and I really liked that idea, so I researched some old sports card designs from like the 70s and created these cards, and John Borg absolutely hated them. He said, no, we're not doing that. So this design got scrapped. Yeah, it is kind of too bad. So here's my first complete package design. Now you'll see what I did there in the right side. I'm going to sneak those trading cards in there. John's not going to notice. John noticed. John also hated this entire art package because of those trading cards. All of this work was thrown in the garbage because he hated the trading cards. I kind of like this one too, but it got trashed. So anyway, here's another one. Now, you have to notice, I'm sure, some of this art was eventually used. Because what I do is, like if you've seen Bob Ross paint pretty trees and all that on TV, that's not how I do my work, because when Bob Ross is done, you can't change his art. It is what it is. I'm not a fine artist. I wish I was. I'm not cut out for that kind of stuff. But that girl's really good. So everything's a separate illustration. Was there a punchline over there, Jack? Did I talk over you? I'm sorry. So every drawing's a separate drawing, and it's like playing with color forms. You can just, once you got it scanned in, you can move it around. I can even change the lighting, paint over top of it, and if I want a purple light coming from the side, I can do that. But once it's in the computer, I can do what I want with it. So a lot of this art was eventually used, just not in these particular layouts. Here's my first little Easter egg. In the upper left corner, you'll see Mr. Stan Lee. He's the guy who created most of the Marvel characters. And he had a saying that was just enough said. The picture next to that those are actual vintage pins that Marvel put out in the 70s. And as a little nod to Stan Lee, because he appears in all the movies, he appeared in Guardians, I put that little pin on Rocket's vest, which I believe that's a limited edition. So that's the front of the cabinet where the coin door is on the limited edition. So if you can find one of those here and go look, you'll see that little pin on there. And I don't think Marvel caught it, because if Marvel caught it, they might have said, he didn't wear that in the movie, take that off. But so I slid that one through. Here's a picture of the playfield, Whitewood, as John started putting everything together. I drove in from Michigan to see what I had to work with. Keep in mind, this is my first playfield. I did not do the playfield for Batman. Kevin O'Connor did, and I just did the illustrations of the characters. So all the graphics and like the Batarang and the little cityscape and all that was all done by Kevin O'Connor. So this was my first playfield, and when I saw this, I think there's a little poop in my pants. Because it's when you see a pinball machine without graphics on it, it's very intimidating. It's like, the first thing you can tell just by looking at this, I'm like, where am I going to put any art? You've got inserts all over this thing, so it was a little scary. And that was even scarier too on the left side. That's what they sent me. Are you ready to do the playfield? Yeah. All right, here. Okay. What is this? I could see little pockets of area that I had to work with, but they sent me a labeled version, which I didn't put in here because, you wouldn't be able to read it. But it said, over here is, the Groot shot, this is the Gamora shot, etc. So I knew enough of where things were going. I just had to figure out how I was going to design this, how I was going to get the artwork in there. You can see it's pretty well covered except for in the center. So one thing that John Borg said to me is, you'll see those two little insert lights down by the flippers. He wanted Star-Lord's mask in there. So I'm like, well, that's where I'm going to start. So the first thing I did was I drew the mask and did the inserts and started the playfield from there. Now, that was a big ordeal. When you look at it, you go, oh, that's cool. But if you look at all these different things, this is me drawing the mask in proportion and sending emails to John saying, this isn't going to line up right. It's too high, it's too low, the inserts are too close together, they need to be further apart, they need to be smaller, etc., etc. It took us about a month to get this right, to get it so that when the art printed, the lenses were the right size, they were the right distance apart, etc. So when you see a little thing on a playfield, don't look a gift horse in the mouth, because sometimes it took a lot more work. So you can see here I'm starting to fill out the playfield and putting different things in there. One thing nobody even realizes, if you look right up here in the upper left corner, Ronan's up there. And there's so much stuff in the back that you can't see it, but if you walk up to the side of the machine and look in the back and peek down there, you'll see it. So you can see how I put the different shots in and try to give it a signature color. Each one of the icons. It's my first playfield. I didn't know what I could get away with, so the first thing I asked was, can I put artwork on these inserts? Because it'd just be more appealing to me. Like when I play pinball, and I'm no Jack Danger. If I had a visual reference, it's much easier. So if I see Gamora's face flashing, I know that's where I need to shoot it rather than have to read things, or sometimes you use a funky font and you can't even read it. And you got to look fast, you got to act fast. So the first thing I did was put faces on all the inserts for the signature shots, and that seemed to work out real well. Let's see, what do we have on the next slide here? And here's the bottom. So there's the mask in place with the correct size inserts. The first thing I started with after I did the mask was right above here, all the different call outs for the what do you call them? Not events. Jack, help me out here. Pardon? Modes, yes. Thank you. Start with the modes, the little cluster there. I worked that out and I figured I'm just going to work it out from here. I'll fit characters in where I can. So you see Gamora just barely in there, but get her hand over here and the sword coming through here. All of this stuff just kind of barely weaseled in there because there really wasn't a lot of room there. There's inserts everywhere. We did the little Magnaforce area. Now, as a favor to you players, I tried to indicate with these little stars here where the magnets were on the playfield. John wasn't so kind to do that, so I did as a little favor for you guys. Like, here's where the magnets are. They're going to screw. Do we have any little kids in here? Can I swear? I want to swear at John about this left out lane here. Anybody else play Guardians? Anybody like that left out lane? The ball seems to find that the first 10 seconds of every shot. So there you go. Here's a little close-up. This is not my Easter egg shot, but contained within this picture, there's a tribute to Paul Ferris. Paul Ferris has done a million machines, but the one that's most dear to me is the '89 Batman. And hopefully this will be what's on this next shot here. Nope, it's just a close-up of the playfield. There's another little Easter egg in here that I'll get to. If you look at the slingshots, you might notice that those are not the slingshots that we ended up with. And I'll get to that in a minute too. Just moving up the playfield here. Yeah, that's just a crappy photo of Groot's head kind of spliced in there for positioning only. And up in the left corner, there's I forget her name. What's Gamora's sister? Sure. What's her name? Darn it. It's just barely cut off on here.
I was saying Naomi, but that's not right.
No, it's not Naomi.
Why did I think it was that?
Nebula.
Yeah, it was close.
Yeah, that didn't end up. I don't know why that didn't end up. I did two different plastics, one with and one without, and they chose the one without. I would have thought it would have been fun to include that, but they didn't. So there's another little extra. These are the plastic levels. And basically how we see how this looks is once they're done created, we layer these on top of each other and put them on top of the playfield so you get an idea what everything looks like together. Oh, now it's jumping ahead on me, but we'll stop it. Yeah, so that's the plastics. Two levels of plastics. This is the back wall plastic. People don't even realize if you look at it in the game, there's actually silhouettes of the characters in there, but people never really notice. But they're in there. This is a layout with all the stickers and all the targets and all the cards and fun stuff. All of this stuff has to be designed. This thing is really pissing me off. There we go. Down here on the lower right side, this was a first for Stern. Color printed armor. It looked really cool, but if you had a ring on and you were playing, the ring would actually scratch the printing off, so that whole concept got scrapped, and it's a shame because it looked really cool. And above that, we have the Hedron Enforcer plate. This little round thing here, you might not recognize when you play the game, but those are actually stickers on the inside of the orb. So when it opens up, you see all the detail of the orb inside. That had to be printed. It's a certificate. And as we said, all the little apron frames and plastics. Here we go. Okay, so my tribute to Paul Ferris. On the top is the Guardians, and you'll see the Milano and the Xandar ships, the good guys, coming in over here. Well, if you look at the 89 Batman, you'll find, and this is the best picture I could find, the Batwing is flying down the right lane here, and the Batmobile's coming down the left lane. So that was my little tribute to Paul Ferris. It never hurts to forget the people who were here before you. So I've got my heroes. There's another Easter egg. Now, if you were to clean your machine and take the metal ramp off on the plunge lane, you would find underneath that, you said it, bitch, were the Guardians of the Galaxy. And Marvel was cool enough to let us put that in there. Of course, they knew that it wouldn't be seen by most people, but if you pull your ramp off, it's down there. And of course, Cosmo makes an appearance in all the movies, so he had to make an appearance in the pinball machine. We'll get to that one. So you'll find him right up here, coming out of the shooter lane. It's actually right through the ramp. If you look down at the ramp, right through the center of the ramp and look down, you'll see him down there. Had to include him. Puppy boy. And here's where I sign the game. Those letters are actually a Guardians of the Galaxy alphabet, and that's actually my name. And if you look at it, you can tell it says Franchi, because they're just kind of slightly whacktified letters. But anyway, if you're looking for it, that's where you'll find it. Didn't sign the art. So, all right, here's the interesting story. I just finished all the plastics in the playfield, and in the summer, spooky releases, total nuclear annihilation, and look what's on the slings right here. And look what's on mine right here. Son of a bitch. So I called up Greg Frères at Stern, and I said, emergency, emergency. I don't want to look like I stole anything from anyone. Do I have time to replace this? And he said, yes, one day. If you get it to me in the morning, we're good. So that's where this design came in. I don't know what that is. I just kind of made a funky shape and go, that looks neat. Looks like a comb. I don't know what it is, but we'll go with it. So as much as a lot of crap went around about Stern with that 80s sort of logo on the video screen, and they ripped off Total Nuclear Annihilation. Two things about that. Number one, I did everything not to, case in point, and actually a production artist in Stern named Steve Martin did that logo, and he had no idea what was going on with this Total Nuclear Annihilation thing. He lives in his own little planet, and he just did it because the 80s graphics were like hip at the time. So just coincidental. Nobody's stealing from nobody. They asked me to do a topper design. So this is a little concept I came up with. And they built it exactly like this in every way. They didn't change anything. The way the base was, everything. And I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm not a topper designer or an engineer. I just said, well, this would be cool. Put some lights in the back, some LED color changing lights. This is a piece of plexiglass with the lightning on it and the silhouettes of the characters, and that's what they did. So that's what the original layout looked like. Now, what am I showing you a picture of here? This is a Milano going through a time warp in space. Everybody says hexagons, hexagons, hexagons. What's with all these hexagons? Well, if you watched the GD movie, you would have known that plays a big part in the movie, because depending on which one of these you go through, it tells you where you're going to go. So it basically opens up thousands, millions of worlds. So that's where the hexagon theme came from. I didn't just go, I'll just fill up the space with hexagons. It's actually a plot point in the movie. Now you can tell your friends. And that's a preview of my next game, because I know you guys were going to ask. Right now, I'm working on Grumpy Cat. If you want to get a cell phone picture of that, because it's going away right away. There. Now it's gone. So that's it. That's the graphic part of the presentation. Again, like I said, I had 9. Not done yet. I had 9 months to do this. It was a lot of on and off time. I would finish the cabinets. That's the easy part. It doesn't really work with the game. You just throw some pretty graphics together. Once that's done, we'll get you the play field as soon as we're done. You know, a month might go by, then the play field shows up. And then plastics after that, and then you go in and you start tweaking things. The things don't turn out the way you think. They don't fit right. John was making changes on the games, which required me to make changes on the plastics. So, but it was good to have 9 months to do this. We didn't get in too many fights. I really tried to push those trading cards, but I didn't get my way. But I wouldn't be surprised if they show up on something. That's all I'm going to say. Not necessarily a future game. It was Guardians of the Galaxy related, but don't be surprised if you see them down the road. And that's it. I guess I don't know what you guys want to know, so I'll turn this over to a Q&A. You guys can ask whatever you want, and I will answer to the best of my knowledge.
Hey, are you getting any royalties off the artwork for every game sold?
Am I getting royalties? No. I get paid very well, so I guess there's no need to ask for royalties. I'm just performing one of many services that it takes to build this thing. It takes a village, and I'm just one guy. So if you paid royalties to everybody, there wouldn't be anything left. And when there's no profits, there's no more pinball machines, and we don't want that. Anyone else?
Do you, are you provided a style guide from Marvel, and do you follow it religiously, or do you take your first shot, show them what you can do, and then trust that they'll let you continue to do what you do well?
They do provide a style guide. Most properties do. I try to stay away from that as much as I can. I'll use it for reference. Obviously, when you're drawing pictures of Star-Lord and Gamora, they offer great photos in there to as a reference. And the first pass is, let's see what I can get away with, because no artist wants to use anybody else's stuff. I believe that anything that has to do with pinball should be artwork. That's what I grew up with. And is there an amendment there?
No, just to follow up, when you did that, did they give you pretty much, after you showed them, hey, this is what I can do, did they give you free reign then?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what happened. I did the first pass and showed it to them, and they were happy with everything. And I just said, okay, well, I'm just going to do everything, and I'm going to do it the way I want. And if they come back and say make changes, I had plenty of time. So, if they say, well, I always can use whatever I do. I can always use it for something. So if I drew a picture of Star-Lord and they said, no, use a style guide or whatever, I'd eventually find a use for it. But luckily they didn't. They liked everything that I did, and I was able to use it, and I think, I might be mistaken, but I'm pretty darn sure that somebody there, it might have been Greg Ferris, who was my art director on the project, told me that it was the first time something had come back and they made 0 changes on the art. It was just like, yes, go with it. So the only changes I made were, for the purpose of suiting John's game. Like if he changed something in a plastic, had to be changed, I'd do that. But
And
Marvel
those
just,
fucking trading cards.
don't talk about the trading cards. Trading cards. So anyway, yeah, that's basically how it works, is you see what you can get away with. And if you can pull it off and they're happy with it. And Marvel's really cool to work with. I know, like, everybody's really down on the Star Wars and all that. Marvel's very creative, driven, and they welcome other people's takes on things. As long as it fits in their world and you don't do something really crazy like, Lego people or whatever. As long as you stay with what they're doing, they like different art styles and all of that. So they're very good to artists, and I had no problems. So it was a dream to work with them. Anyone else?
Chris, obviously, was there areas that you struggled with? What am I going to do with this section, or what am I going to put there? In the middle of the night, how many times did you have like aha moments where you got up and were like, oh my God, like it finally came to me, like that's what I'm going to do with that area.
So like having trouble with something, and then like having sort of an epiphany at some point. That that rarely happens to me. Like if I'm just laying in bed and like, wow, and I wake up, I got an idea. My ideas come to me when I look at what I'm working on. Because a lot of this stuff really depends on the space that you have available. I can dream up all kinds of things, but is it going to work? Is it going to fit? I usually, the way I did this was I started with the backgrounds. After I had that head and the cluster with all the modes, I put in all the backgrounds. I tie in those electric fire rings, and that'll contain everything in the center. And then there'll be space outside of that. We'll do an asteroid field and blah, 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 blah. And I had to tweak that stuff a little bit once I put the characters in, but that's how I started. And then I'm like, where is this stuff going to fit? The ideas come as you're working on things. You have a lot of time to think when you're drawing, because it takes a lot of time just to draw one character. You're just sitting there drawing somebody's shirt, and you start thinking, your mind just starts wandering of your more interesting things. And so ideas come to me anyway. That's how I work. They come to me while I'm working. Anyone else? Who was first? This guy? Blue shirt?
Why does John have a vendetta against trading cards?
Oh, I didn't hear. Do you know what that was? It's hard. The speakers
more
are
time,
behind
dear.
us here, so we can't really hear the
Everything's
questions.
muffled. Oh.
Oh, I need to ask John that. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know if he just didn't get it, or, it's... I couldn't tell you. He had nothing to say about the artwork otherwise, as far as everything else goes, because he's not really the art director. He's designing the game, and Greg Ferreras was the art director. But Greg showed it to John, and he's just like, no. And I'm glad you asked that, because he is at the show. I'm going to ask him, like, dude, I already got a picture of me choking him because of the left out lane. I need another picture of me choking him because he wouldn't let me use those damn sports cards. So I couldn't tell you. Sorry, I don't have an answer. But if you see him walking around the show, he's a guy that looks like a BMX biker. Ask him, and then kick him in the nuts for me. All right, someone over here. Oh.
If you could do any pinball art package, original or licensed, what would be your dream project?
Well, you'd have to ask me what my second dream would be, because number one was 66 Batman. If any of you don't know, I was tapped to do that because I already had a bunch of 66 Batman artwork out in the world. And Stern had their artwork done, and George Gomez actually completely hated it. And in a panic moment, 3 weeks before Expo, 3 or 4 weeks before Expo, they just went out on Google and they typed in 66 Batman, and my artwork popped up. And that's how I got the job. So that was my dream, that's awesome too. Like, I don't take that for granted. Like, I feel extremely lucky that my introduction into pinball was drawing my dream theme. That's very rare. But I do have more. And I would love to do, some of the ones I'd love to do will never be made into pinball machines, like The Exorcist or Dexter's Laboratory. No, Dee Dee, no. That'd be a great pinball, wouldn't it? Because he always had that laboratory full of crazy machines. I'd really, 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 and this might come true, I'd really love to do Jaws. That my style works more towards that than it does like, doing Iron Maiden or something like that, I love drawing movie posters and trying to capture a movie in a single image and stuff like that. I love doing that kind of stuff. And I happen to like sharks, so Jaws would be another one. Dream theme. And a Jack Danger pinball machine. That's what I'm talking about. That's about it. Anyone else?
So you mentioned some great Easter eggs in this machine. Has anyone ever asked for a specific Easter egg, and or have you ever put one inside a machine where only an owner or a repair person would see it?
Did you catch what that was?
Have you ever put a specific Easter egg into a machine for someone, basically?
For someone. Did you guys all hear that? It probably sounds better on that side of the speakers. Here it sounds really echoey and strange, so I'm sorry about that. Well, I would hope that Paul Ferris saw the spaceships and got the tip of the hat. That's not really why I did it though, but there are things coming that are, let's just say I'm getting more and more clever with my Easter eggs. For example, I can't say how, but I have 2 machines that will be out in October or maybe September, I don't know. Originally it was supposed to be Expo, but Expo's now all broken up and something's going on there. So sometime around there I have 2 new machines coming out, and my lovely daughter Presley is going to make an appearance in there. And of course, that means the most to me. That and my dog. If I could get my little French bulldog in on one of these machines, I certainly would, because Barlow's my buddy. But other than that, no. Somebody asked me to, I would try.
Pet pinball machine. There we go.
Sim's pet pinball machine? Sure. Okay, someone else raised their hand.
So,
She's good with the microphone, isn't she? Like, you raise your hand and I get to you and you already got the mic.
so when pinball designers are designing their games for an LE versus Pro, the base model, some designers start with the LE and then they take things away for the Pro. Some start with the Pro and then add things for the LE. From your art perspective, how do you approach, like, do you want to put cooler things in the LE because they paid more, or do you want to say more people have the Pro, so I want the Pro to have the cooler stuff?
Well, I know there's somebody in the audience here. I learned my lesson the hard way on Guardians. Well, basically what I do is I create art packages. I don't create necessarily for, here's a limited edition, here's a super limited edition. I just create art packages. And then we kind of look at them. Sometimes it's really obvious, one's stronger than another one. But when I was doing Guardians, I took the one that I liked the most and I said, let's put this on the Pro. Because that's the one you're going to see in the arcades. That's the one most people can afford. So it's going to get seen the most. However, some people feel that if you're going to pay a premium dollar for a limited edition, you should get the best art package. No, but I would say, Mr. Kaneda, that art is subjective. And just because one is my favorite doesn't make it everybody's favorite. So we gave it a shot, and then they put gold armor on and ruined it. But we won't get into that. So, yeah, I just, with these next 2, I did take that into consideration. And I will say that one of them, one's a Kapow game, one's a Stern game. The LE for the Stern game looks like a limited edition. There is no mistaking that this is the top of the line.
Drastically different.
There's some very cool things in this thing that have never been done before on the exterior of the game, and you will see it and you will know that's a limited edition. So I'm taking that into consideration nowadays. All right, anyone else? Sorry, it's the person with the microphone.
I was wondering what illustrators and graphic designers you found particularly inspiring, and is there any work that stands out in your mind?
Any work, like a particular piece of art? Not a particular piece of art. My favorite artists are kind of eclectic. I don't know very many people who could say if you list your list of favorite artists, at least contemporary artists, wouldn't have Drew Struzan at the top of the list. He's my absolute favorite. I think the man's brilliant. I also like an artist named Charles Burns, who is an underground comic artist. And you might have seen his work on album covers. He also does comic books that are kind of adult themed, not like, creepy nudity and stuff, but, just stuff kids wouldn't be interested in reading. Crazy.
I don't think kids are very interested in reading this either. What is that?
Oh.
Mercy.
Well, that wasn't on my flash drive. I don't know what that was. The only thing on this thing are slides for this show, because if anything else was on there and accidentally got showed. All right, where was I? What was I talking about?
Favorite artist, Charles Burns.
Oh, favorite artist, yeah, Charles Burns. He's an inker. This guy is a robot. He just strictly draws in black and white, and his lines are so inhumanly perfect that it would just blow your mind. Other artists. Now I can't think.
I can't help you.
Help me. Tell me, who are my favorite artists?
I know I'm pretty great.
Paul Ferris isn't one of my favorite artists, no. No, I respect his work. As far as pinball goes, you know, I have a lot to learn about pinball. I've been a fan all my life, and I've owned an '89 Batman for a long time only because it's Batman. I'm a Batman collector. So I still have a lot to learn, but I'll say modern day, I really like Jeremy Packer's work, who you may know as Zombie Yeti, Deadpool, Magic Girl, and others. Yeah, he just has a sense of fun about his artwork that I really like. I have a very similar style than he does along that vein, but I really haven't had a chance to use it yet. Because I basically grew up as an artist thinking if I could draw like anyone, I could be used more than a guy who just draws like this. Because if you need this, you'll go to that guy. But if you need this, any of these, you could come to me because I can do all of these. So I don't really have a particular style, but there are different ways I like to draw, and you know, I don't know. I'd still, you know, Jeremy's probably better at me than that in that style, but I appreciate that style. I like all that little fun stuff, the little good luck charms and flaming dice and weird things.
I will say this, he definitely has a favorite color scheme. I can tell your
Purple,
artwork just
orange,
by the
and teal?
colors. Yes. And
Purple,
that-
orange, and teal. Everybody, let's hear it for purple, orange, and teal.
And that weird green color as well.
Yeah, when Batman came out, everybody was like, you know, wow, with the colors, you know. And I'm like, well, did you ever watch the show? It wasn't, you know, you might have watched it on black and white TV, but that was like the first super colorful show. And when I got to Guardians, the lessons I learned on Batman were really bright colors really stand out. And they go well with the concept of a box of flashing lights. You know, would you want to have, you know, I've seen some pinball machines that are really dark and dull, and they don't appeal to me. I don't want to play, it doesn't look fun. Pinball should be fun. And so visually, you know, I'm a firm believer in bright colors, and I'm a firm believer in giving you what you pay for. You're not going to look at a playfield that I design and go, there's 1, 2, 3 characters. Wow, thanks. I'm going to put as much effort and detail into every area of that playfield as I can so that when you look at it, as Kaneda says, you fall into the world under glass. That's what it should be. There should be no dead zones. It should be fun everywhere. It should be exciting. It should be colorful. It should pull you in.
Good God.
Hey, lady.
Excuse me.
Okay, next. Yes.
Yes. With the Guardians of the Galaxy, that's a group of 5, but you put all the villains in as well. Did you get any concept feedback from Stern, like what they wanted to do with the game in terms of how they were going to play the mode and that kind of stuff, that you figured like, okay, they all need to be in there, or was that your choice, or were there guidelines like, we need everybody in there?
You're asking if the concepts that I used and how the different things were presented were...
No, about the characters used on the game, because in essence, the Guardians of the Galaxy are a group of 5. But you put all the villains in as well.
Oh, the villains. I just, you know, I've seen both movies. At that point, I had seen both movies.
Right.
And I knew I could only use the one. To answer your question, or to answer the question everybody's thinking or always talking about, like, why didn't they do both movies? You can't just do what you want. Sometimes a studio will say, here you go, you get the whole suite. And sometimes they won't. Marvel did not, so we went with the first movie. As far as the villains, I just went with what I knew. You know, there was Ronan. He was the main bad guy. You had Gamora, and oh God, what's his name? Who's the big baddie? With the glove? The Thanos. Thanos. Yes, thank you. Sorry, I'm old and I can't remember shit anymore. Thanos was in there for like 2 seconds, but that's where the movie's going. That's where the series was going. Like, it's eventually going to end up with with Thanos and the Infinity Gauntlet. So I had to put him in there, and pretty much felt that that's all it needed. The other bad guys were minuscule. Didn't really need to be on there. I figured the less I used, the bigger I could make them.
All right, Chris, you sort of stole my question earlier. So before you started doing pinball art, tell us about how you got in, what your feelings were towards pinball beforehand. Obviously, you said you had an old Batman, but so how did you like pinball other than the fact that it was a Batman machine?
Well, we have one under here, but just Steve's talking really loud. She was asking about your other artwork, how you got into it. She knows your feelings of pinball, but what you were doing before.
Oh, okay. So what was I doing before pinball? No? Dirtball.
How much did you like pinball, or what was your interest in pinball before you got called to do Batman?
See, now the lack of microphone works much better. Okay, how much did I like pinball? If anybody here is from the Midwest, I grew up playing hockey. So we all know that there was at least 3 or 4 pinball machines in every hockey rink. And what you don't know is that my mom wasn't always on time to pick me up. So I played a lot of pinball, and my favorite was Captain Fantastic, Bally's Captain Fantastic. So my interest in pinball was strong, but I wasn't into the culture. I didn't know about Pinside. I didn't know about all these, I didn't know about, what a big culture it was now, because just 2 years ago, this thing was already happening, the resurgence was already happening. And I wasn't even aware of it. The strange thing with Stern was that in 1996, I was working with KISS. And I called up Stern after finding out they were the only people left. And I called up Stern and I said, and this was just for selfish reasons because I wanted one. I said, KISS is a really collectible pinball machine. Did you guys ever thinking about making a new one with today's technology, with all the cool ramps and all that crap? Because, the classic machine is classic. It is in all due respect to it. It's boring, hit these 3 targets down and there's a bumper over here, big deal. I just thought, the way KISS does things, a new machine would be amazing. So I was working with the Beatles at the time, doing t-shirt designs, sportswear designs for the Beatles. And I said, KISS also works with the same merchandise company as the Beatles. So I said, I could hook you up with the licensing people for KISS and put in a good word for you if you let me do the artwork. And they said, okay, well, and it was probably bullshit. They're probably like, yeah, we'll let you do the artwork, whatever, dickhead, But set it all up, and KISS being KISS wanted way too much, and Stern didn't do it at the time. But I had a bunch of concept art that we eventually used for KISS. I had this brilliant idea, or at least I thought it was brilliant at the time because I never saw anybody do it before, to do a plastic that connected the inlane plastic to the sling bumper. And it was a side view of Gene with his mouth open and his tongue missing, but the flipper lined up right with the bottom of his chin. So if you put a red flipper in there, it would look like his tongue flipping. Brilliant, right? And then the ball would come down from behind his head, so you couldn't really see it until it popped out of his mouth. Never got used. Never got used. Got thrown in the shit can because KISS is a bunch of money-grubbing vultures. Hope that answers your question. One more question?
Are you in-house with Stern or are you contractor for artwork?
What was that? Oh, in-house for Stern. No, I'm a contractor for Stern right now, and that will probably take me up to October, and then I probably won't be. But we don't want to talk about that. So for now, contractor. Yeah. All right, is that it? We're good? All right. Who had, you want to pick the best, who had the best question?
Best question.
Who had the best question? Come on.
I'm thinking. I like the question of what you would be doing and what you were doing before pinball, because that's what I grew up on. I grew up on the T-shirts and KISS. So I like your question.
Oh. Okay, so you win the personalized signed Guardians print. Anybody else? If you want a signed Guardians flyer, come on up and I will sign one for you. No charge at all, of course, because it ain't worth shit. But come on up, and thanks for coming out and listening, and have a great time at the show.